AI is everywhere these days, and it is transforming how we all write code. The potential is incredible, especially in WordPress. But when it comes to developing any project using AI with tools like Cursor, there are a few pitfalls that can cost you time and actually lower the quality of your code. So in this video, I'll show you how to set up Cursor for seamless WordPress development while avoiding some common mistakes so your AI-generated code is clean, efficient, and adheres to WordPress coding standards. My name is Nick Diego, and I'm a developer relations advocate for WordPress. Let's dive in. Now, there are many different AI tools you can use for development, but for this video, I'm going to be focusing specifically on Cursor, which we can see here in the browser. If you're not familiar with Cursor, think of it as an AI-enhanced version of VS Code, powerful autocomplete, search, chat, that sort of thing. If you're someone like me who's already familiar with VS Code, you'll have no problem picking up Cursor. It is important to note that Cursor has paid pricing tiers. However, the free option gives you everything that you would need to follow along with this video. So let's start getting set up with Cursor. All right, so here we are in an empty project folder called Copy Code. More on that later, but it's open in Cursor. Again, notice how much Cursor looks and feels like VS Code. This folder, it's located inside of the plugins folder of my local WordPress development environment, which is powered by WordPress Studio. So the first thing I always do when starting a new project is I add what's called a .cursor rules file. This is where you can define project-specific instructions that Cursor will always follow whenever it's providing answers and code snippets. So let's do that now. We'll add a new file, cursor rules, just like that. So this is generic information, such as the PHP version of code for, what WordPress version of support, and more. For example, this is a great place to tell Cursor to always follow WordPress coding standards. Now, there are many different ways you can write out this file, but luckily there's some community resources that will help get you started. One is called cursor.directory. It's one of my favorites and helped me start writing these files. So let's navigate to our browser and check it out. So this is the website, and you can see that there are different examples for different coding languages. And if we scroll down, we can see that there are 3 for WordPress. Now again, this should be just considered a starting point, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to copy the first one. And we'll go back to Cursor, and we'll paste it in. And if we take a quick look at this file, we can see that it's telling Cursor to make sure it's writing concise technical responses, make sure we use PHP 7.4 and above, things like that. But I encourage you to fine-tune this content for your own specific needs. The more details that you provide Cursor, the better. Next, let's create an instructions markdown file. You can think of this as your plugin's blueprint. It tells Cursor exactly what you want to build and how it should be built. Now, I know it's tempting to just start asking Cursor to write code for you, but trust me, you will have far better results the more clearly you plan out what you want to build. So let's go ahead and add that file. Now, you can name it actually whatever you want. This is just kind of the process that I've been following. And for the sake of the video, I've already written the instructions, and we'll paste that in here. These instructions will prompt Cursor to build a simple plugin. Notice how it's broken into step 1 and step 2. And each step is actually quite detailed with a lot of different information that I've provided. I want this plugin to extend the code block in WordPress core by adding a little button that allows the user to click and copy the code snippet. You'll find this functionality on most documentation sites that you visit. And the beauty of breaking this down into steps is that it makes the development process much more manageable and easier to debug if something does go wrong. So we'll tell Cursor to complete step 1, check the work, and then move on. As with all AI, Cursor can hallucinate and implement things in ways that you might not expect, and this stepped process really helps to mitigate that. So at this point, you might actually be wondering, how do you get Cursor to take these prompts and generate code? And that's where the Cursor chat and composer come in. We can see them by opening up this AI panel on the side. Both allow you to generate code, but they serve different purposes. Chat is great for questions about how to build something or questions about existing code. You can think of it like ChatGPT or Claude, but within your code editor. Well, it will generate code for you. It will not actually modify any of your files. Now, Composer, on the other hand, can add folders, files, write code, everything. And we'll use Composer to execute instructions from our Markdown file. Now, all the setup we've done so far with the cursor rules file and the instructions prompts were done to try and improve the accuracy of the AI response. But there are a few more steps that you can take. And one of the most powerful features of Cursor is the ability to link reference documentation and resources directly into chat and Composer. You can also reference specific files, lines of code, and you can do that with this little context button here. This helps ensure that the AI agent has all the context it needs to build exactly what you want. So let's click here, and we can see that we can select the instructions markdown file. That will give this chat context over the instructions. We can also do the @ symbol, which will give us this little drop down where you can pick all sorts of different things. Now, one of my favorites is the docs option. Clicking on here, you can start searching. We can do WordPress, and you can see that it can pull in the official WordPress documentation. You can also add your own documentation manually. It's very cool. So you can see that by providing this context, you're giving both the chat and the Composer the ability to reference this material as it's providing answers. Now, the last thing I like to do is ask Composer to review my instructions markdown file to see if it has any questions. So I've added this context for instructions and the WordPress docs. And what I'm going to say is I'm going to say, can you please review the instructions and see if you have any questions before completing the steps. Now, this is really helpful because it prevents Cursor from going down the wrong path. Now, of course, it could still happen, but this really helps. And you probably noticed that there are a couple spelling errors in this prompt. Well, thankfully, Composer is pretty good at ignoring those. So we're going to run this prompt to see if it has any problems with the instructions. Now, Composer is going to analyze the instructions file and provide us with the answer we need. And it looks like, according to Composer, the instructions are clear and it doesn't have any questions. So now at this point, you can feel relatively confident that proceeding with step 1 is a pretty safe thing to do. All right, now let's proceed with step 1 by asking Composer to run it. So please run step 1. Now keep an eye on the left-hand side of the screen. You will notice that Cursor is going to start building out files and folders that adhere to what we asked it to do. This could always take a few seconds. And now that it's done, you can see that it's asking if we want to accept all the changes. Before we do, it's always kind of good to look at, see what it did. We can see that it has the asset folder with your CSS and JavaScript. We also have the primary full file for the plugin. We'll accept all. All right, now at this point, this is where we need to check to make sure what step 1 did was actually what we wanted to do. So now I'm going to switch over to Studio and launch my local site. And we can come over here to plugins, and we can see that our copy code plugin has been activated. Then we'll head on over to a page, this one, actually written by AI about our brand new copy code block. And if we scroll down, we should see there's this little button here that says copy code. And when you click it, it says copied. So that's exactly what we wanted to do for step 1. Now you can imagine that maybe we want to make some tweaks, and we're going to do that in step 2. For that, I want to have this button appear in the top right-hand corner, and I want it to be an icon. I don't want it to say copy code. I want it to be a little copy icon, and it should only appear on hover. So let's head back over to Cursor and have it continue with step 2. Looks good. Please continue with step 2. Again, it's going to make the updates according to step 2 in our instructions file. Now, part of that for the icons, they are built out with SVGs. Now, if you don't tell Cursor what to use for SVGs, it will figure it out, but it might not be what you want. So if we look back at the instructions file, you can see that I've provided an SVG for copy and one for checkmark. The checkmark will be once it's copied, you'll see a little check to indicate that it was successful. So it's always good to provide more context to Cursor if you can. In this case, I knew which icons I wanted to use. Now we're going to accept everything, and we will go back to the browser, and we'll refresh. And there we go. Now we can see that when a user hovers over a code block, they get the little icon, the copy icon, they click it, and when it's successful, they get the little check mark to indicate that it's been copied. So pretty cool, right? However, this is a very simple plugin, and I don't want to set false expectations. When developing with Cursor or any other AI tool, it's rare that you'll be able to build exactly what you want with a single prompt, even if you stepped it like we did here. Because no matter how detailed you are, Cursor might build it in a way that you don't want it to, or you might decide later that you want to change something. But that's the beauty of AI, because if you run into an error or want to make a change, you can just ask it with an additional prompt and it will make those changes for you. It's not perfect, but the speed at which you can scaffold projects is truly incredible. So that's really all there is to it. You now know how to set up a basic plugin or theme development environment in Cursor, create structured instructions, and use the composer to bring your WordPress project to life. Now, remember, this is just scratching the surface. There's so much more that you can do with Cursor's AI capabilities, especially if you're writing a lot of code yourself. So if you found this helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe this WordPress YouTube channel for more development related tutorials, especially those around AI. And drop a comment if you have any questions, or share any of your own techniques for coding with tools like Cursor. This is kind of the brave new world of WordPress development. That's all for now, and I'll see you in the next one.